If you're researching cruise lines, the only thing you may vaguely know about Holland America is that it has a reputation for being a cruise line for old people. But is this fair or really even accurate? Let's discuss. For a bit of background, my partner and I recently came back from a 14-day Caribbean cruise on board their newest ship, the Rotterdam. This was my sixth cruise overall and my very first on Holland America. So this video will be about what stood out to us, both the good and the bad, during our first cruise experience with a different brand. We were a little nervous going into it. As a couple in our late 30s and early 40s, we weren't sure if this was going to be the best cruise line for where we are in life. But after doing some research and finding an awesome itinerary, we decided to give it a shot to see if it was a good fit for us elder millennials. I'll start off with what we liked and who we think Holland America might be a good fit for before finishing with the dislikes and who might want to avoid this line. But spoiler alert, the dislike list isn't going to be actually all that long. First off, Holland America line is going to be a good fit for anyone who prefers a more traditional cruise experience. Holland America has a long, rich history dating back 150 years, and their vessels have maintained that more classic-looking ship aesthetic. They don't look to reinvent the wheel with activities and gimmicks. They just focus on doing the basic things well. Think good food, good drinks, good entertainment, and good service. So if you're someone who's more interested in the basics done well versus how many laser, paintball, upside-down water slides you can cram onto one ship, then you're going to enjoy Holland America's entire fleet. Now, of course, the basics done well and classical cruising is going to appeal to an older demographic. But if this kind of cruising is your taste, then Holland America is going to appeal to you regardless of your age. Holland America cruise ships are exactly that, cruise ships, not theme parks at sea. Don't get me wrong, I have been on a few theme parks at sea and loved them. There is something about putting a water slide on a boat that is just awesome. But I also really enjoyed this type of experience where things are a bit more relaxed, calmer, and less overstimulating. A second thing that may attract you to Holland America ships are their size. Many of the newest ships on the resort lines are huge. Thousands and thousands of passengers and crew. They're almost like floating cities at sea, where at times you may forget you're in the middle of the ocean and feel instead like you're just at a fancy mall or wandering through a Las Vegas hotel. Now, Holland America ships aren't small either. They range in capacity from about 1,400 on the smaller end up to about 2,600 on the larger end, so they're kind of in that sweet spot. They're big enough to have plenty going on and locks to explore, but small enough that you always feel like you're on a ship and don't get that tricked out shopping mall vibe. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm still super curious to check out Icon of the Seas one day too, but I really liked the happy medium that Holland America offers with their ship sizes. The Rotterdam felt big and busy without feeling overwhelming, and that was really nice. If you want to see a full tour of the Rotterdam, I did film that as well. You can check that out at the link above, otherwise the link is in the description below and will appear again at the end of this video. Third on the list, I loved their long itineraries. They do have plenty of standard length offerings, but Holland America specializes in longer cruises, and this is part of the reason why they are popular with the retired demographic. Most working people or those with young families can't get the time away to do many of these lengthier cruises. So if you like extended voyages and plenty of time out to sea, then Holland America might be a good fit for you. They're also set up to connect itineraries back to back. Our 14-day cruise was actually two 7-day cruises back to back, and we could have even added a third week on board had our schedule permitted. Number 4, excellent food. The older I've gotten, the more sophisticated my palate has become, and the more I've grown to appreciate high-quality, well-prepared food. As I mentioned earlier, Holland America is all about doing the simple things well, and food is one of them. Food on the bigger resort lines can be good. I've had lovely meals on board other ships. But the quality is going to be more hit or miss, with more misses than hits depending on which resort line you're traveling on. With Holland America, you don't have to worry about that. Not every dish is going to appeal to every palate, but you never have to worry about poor ingredients or weak quality. And that is something that should appeal to all ages. We were very pleased with the quality of food in both the buffet, the main dining hall, and in the specialty restaurants. For the specialty offerings, we ate at the Pinnacle Grill, their signature steakhouse, and Tamarind, the Asian fusion restaurant. Both restaurants were excellent, and we were pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to make and change the specialty dining reservations. On other lines, the specialty restaurants are much harder to book and sometimes impossible to change. Much easier experience here. Fifth, excellent drinks. Holland America knows how to make a cocktail, and that is something that should appeal to all ages, 21 and up, of course. One thing I particularly appreciated on board the Rotterdam were the drinks at their pool bars. On other cruise lines, I've found that while the drinks at the interior bars are decent, the poolside beverages were often sickly sweet. The kind of cheaper, overly saccharine mixed drinks that as I approach 40, I just can't handle anymore. Half a drink in and I feel gross from all that sugar. But the poolside drinks on the Rotterdam were lovely. The kind you can slowly nurse while spending a day relaxing by the pool without worrying about what you're doing to your blood sugar levels and teeth. The quality level is maintained, of course, throughout the interior of the ship as well, with several specialty bars featuring a variety of unique cocktails to keep you intrigued and quench your thirst. They also had a nice selection of good quality, inexpensive wines by the glass, which as a wine drinker is something I've struggled a bit finding on the other cruise lines. On the non-alcoholic side of things, this was also my first experience on a cruise line that offered afternoon tea. This was so delightful and such a pleasant way to spend an afternoon at sea. Truly excellent experience overall with drinks on the Rotterdam. Sixth, excellent service. This ties in once again to the concept of simple things done well. You'll interact with a lot of cruise staff during the course of a voyage, and I never once saw anyone miss a beat. Our cabin steward was lovely and accommodating, guest services handled the few needs we had, bartenders and servers were friendly and efficient, and the wait staff was excellent. Our waiter at Pinnacle Grill actually talked me out of buying a more expensive wine fleet because he thought a lower-priced option would go better with my meal. If you expect and appreciate good service, Holland America won't let you down. Seventh up on the list is where things start to perhaps get a bit more tied into age. Everyone loves good food and drinks, whether you're 21 or 91. But entertainment is more of a personal preference, and chances are, while that 21-year-old and 91-year-old might be enjoying that same glass of sangria, what's going to keep them amused and engaged and having fun on vacation may be quite different. First off, Holland America's entertainment offerings do focus heavily on music. The music venues take up a fair bit of common area space, and many of the decks on the Rotterdam have musical themes. So if you aren't particularly interested in music as a form of entertainment, then regardless of your age, I wouldn't have Holland America at the top of my recommendation list for you. But as for the music itself, it's top-notch. You can certainly find wonderful musicians on other cruise lines. I've heard many talented artists play on my previous cruises on the resort lines. But I've also heard some music and singing on other cruises that was, well, not stellar. You will not find that situation here. Music is the focus of the entertainment offerings, so all the musicians are vetted and talented performers. Honestly, I was blown away by everyone. We spent most of our time at the Billboard onboard venue, home to the dueling pianos, but there was also a rock venue and a blues club, and we did attend multiple performances at each. When you think of cruise ship entertainment, you may not expect top-of-the-line performers, but let me assure you that Holland America truly delivers on this aspect of its entertainment. Really, really impressive. There's also a theater on board, the World Stage. Taking up the front of decks 2 and 3, it features a 2-story LED screen with a wraparound display. Pretty impressive technology. During our cruise, the World Stage hosted a comedian, a magician, and some additional musical performances. It also served as the onboard movie theater. But a lot of what this stage featured were informative talks and presentations. Still fun and entertaining, but with more of an educational and enrichment focus than what you'd find on the resort lines. I went to one lecture discussing different aspects of the ocean. One was a detailed behind-the-scenes look at how the Rotterdam is run, and one examined the line's story 150-year history. They were all great, really interesting and visually stimulating as they make great use of that 2-story LED screen. But these kinds of things are not going to appeal to everyone. Not everyone is going to want to attend an educational presentation while on vacation, and that's okay. But this is the type of programming that Holland America offers, so it's going to attract people whose interests align. Holland America is perfect for people who love culture, history, and enrichment. And that does tend to skew toward an older demographic. But if you're younger and these things are right up your alley, then you're going to feel very at home here as well. The final aspect of entertainment that I'll touch on is the daily programming. Every cruise ship has a daily program with activities throughout the day, but the kinds of activities are going to vary greatly across the different cruise lines. Holland America's activities are more lower key than what you'll find on the resort lines. You can take knitting basics, learn modern brush lettering, practice origami, do adult coloring, try pickleball, or meet up with others for trivia. You're not going to find raunchy game shows, poolside belly flop competitions, or late-night karaoke contests. While they do host a big orange party on every cruise, there's no nightclub on board. That's not the Holland America line style. So again, it does come down to personal preference. While I still like to have fun and go out, as I approach 40, I'm finding joy in more lower-key things. Would I have been pumped with this daily activity list when I was 20? No, definitely not. The daily activity list is a great way to get a sense of what Holland America is all about. It's not that they are purposefully catering to the older demographic, but what they offer is a relaxed atmosphere with lower-key activities. That can appeal to anyone, but passengers who are seeking out this style of cruising are definitely going to skew older. 8th point to mention is kids. I had a bit of a unique experience in that my first sailing on Holland America was over the holidays, so there were plenty of kids on board. However, overall, Holland America is not a line that's going to appeal to families with small children. They're not adult-only or anti-kid, but this is definitely not a kid-centric cruise line. There's nothing in the daily activities program geared toward children, there's no kid pool, and there's no kid-specific areas in the main part of the ship. There is a kids club on board, which I've read actually does a pretty good job at keeping the little ones entertained, but its hours are a bit more limited than the larger resort lines, and there aren't going to be as many kids on board to make friends with as there would be on other lines. Holland America is kid-friendly, but families with kids are not at all their target customer base. The crew members I chatted with during my time on board mentioned that if you sail when school is in session, there are actually hardly any children on board at all. This makes Holland America a great choice if it's a high priority for you to be on a line that is geared toward adults. 9th up, before we stop singing the praises and circle around to some of the dislikes, are logistics. There were a few logistical things about Holland America that differed from my previous cruise experiences that I really liked, so I wanted to point those out. First in this section has got to be their app. Cruise line apps vary from incredibly useful to hot garbage, and Holland America thankfully has a good one. There's really no excuse for a poorly designed, buggy, useless app in 2024, but some lines don't seem to think it's much of a priority. I also greatly appreciated their pool towel policy. Need one? Grab one. Need 5? Grab 5. Put them in the dirty bin when you leave, and you're done. Other lines are strangely stingy and possessive, and they're usually very basic and worn pool towels, and act as if they're lending you a gold bar when you sign one out. I'm guessing there's a reason behind the policy, but honestly, it's really nice to just be trusted to take one when I need it and put it back when I'm done. Inside the staterooms, everyone is provided with a reusable tote bag, and we used ours a ton during the course of our 14-day voyage. It was useful to take when we were off the ship in ports, or even just to throw some things in when heading to the pool deck. They also make a nice souvenir, and now I know for the future that I don't have to pack an extra bag for odds and ends. It's a nice little touch. Cabins are also stocked with umbrellas, also a thoughtful amenity that I haven't seen on my prior cruises. We usually book balcony cabins, and I always struggled with wanting to put my feet up while I'm outside reading. These balconies come with footrests for the chairs. It's a small thing, but it made such a difference. Another thing we received in our cabin were these cute little passports. At the end of each sailing, you get a sticker to commemorate your journey and stamp the book. It's adorable. I absolutely loved this as a small touch, and of course, now I'm motivated to fill that book with more stickers, so good job on that hook, Holland America. The final 2 things to mention tie into good service, but I wanted to point them out specifically in this section. When returning to the ship from ports, Holland America has little tents set up with water, lemonade, cold towels, and a place to sit if you need it. Some other lines offer similar services too, but just wanted to make mention. It's a nice touch. I also liked that they looked out for us when we made a mistake. We pre-booked clamshell shades for our beach day at Half Moon Cay, Holland America, and Carnival's private island. We misread the online description and booked 2 shells, thinking it was 1 per person. They caught that we booked shades for 4 people when we were only a cabin of 2, So they reached out and asked us perhaps we made a mistake? We did indeed, and we got a refund for the extra clamshell that we didn't need. Nice touch. Okay, now that we've sung the praises, it's time to take a look at the flip side. What we didn't love so much. The first thing I'll touch on will circle back to the big question on age and who is this cruise line for? Who will your fellow cruisers be? Well, if you're like us and are in the millennial or younger Gen X range, then you are likely not going to find yourself amongst a lot of fellow cruisers who are in your demographic. Your fellow cruisers are likely going to be older. And if you're traveling with a partner or a spouse or a group of friends, you may not care. But if you want to get on board and socialize with others and be surrounded with others who are in your rough age bracket, then that might not happen on Holland America. So it's something to keep in mind. I was hoping that maybe we'd find another couple or two in our peer group to chat or hang out with, but it didn't end up happening. That was kind of a bummer. Second up is itinerary structure. You can book back-to-back cruises to build longer trips, which is exactly what we did. But there are some catches that we didn't know about and didn't love. For one thing, while you may treat your cruise as a continuous 14-day trip, in some ways Holland America does not. Once you're on board, you can't easily book things for the second leg of your trip. I was hoping to book 2 spa appointments as the good slots sell out quickly on embarkation day, but was told that I couldn't book anything for the second portion of the trip. I had to come back on the second embarkation day, which for us was the midpoint of the trip, to try and get the slot that I wanted. And that was exactly what I thought I would avoid. The second embarkation day also isn't the full free day on board we thought we were going to get. We still had to meet in the theater to fully disembark the ship and go through customs and then reboard. Clearly that's the law, so not going to argue it. It just felt silly and ate up the whole morning. I also wish that that requirement had been made a little bit clearer. They do drop off a letter in the stateroom discussing it, but it was long and kind of confusing, and we weren't expecting this process at all, so we didn't fully comprehend what we were reading, and we didn't follow the instructions as we should have. And that's on us. Well, me specifically, because I was the one who was wandering around when I should have been in the theater for disembarkation, but the process definitely could have been made a little bit clearer. I've sung the praises earlier on the food, but not everything was perfect. The Rotterdam was launched in the era of COVID, and its buffet style reflects that. There's a lot of glass and partitions, which is great for hygiene and food safety, but the result is a much slower buffet system. There's a lot of waiting on lines, and sometimes I chose food just based on what was quickest to get served. The buffet is also a combination of self-service and staff service, and sometimes it wasn't completely clear which was which. I found that just because you could reach tongs to serve yourself didn't mean you were supposed to. Obviously, things are different in a post-COVID world, and I very much appreciate the efforts to keep everyone healthy and the ships on schedule in what is our new normal. But I think there could perhaps be some improvements here. Now, let's move on to drinks. There were a couple of drink-related things that we didn't love, although nothing related to the quality or variety of what's offered. Part of what we experienced may have just been bad timing, but it still was kind of annoying. Our sailing coincided with a price increase on many of the commonly ordered drinks, but the beverage package hadn't changed to compensate. So we were constantly having to sign bills for $1 or $1.50 every time we got a drink. Even the bartenders and servers found it frustrating that they were constantly having to give us receipts to sign for minuscule amounts. And of course it meant that after 14 days on board, our folios had so many little charges on them that it was really impossible to reconcile. I hope the beverage package price cap has since been or will be soon adjusted to compensate for the price increases they put into place. The other thing we found frustrating was that our beverage package didn't cover drinks on Half Moon Key, the private island. A rum punch on the ship is part of the package, or at least most of it was. There may have been like $1 charge on it due to what I just discussed. But when the staff brings that same rum punch onto shore, I have to pay $12 for it. It's such a small thing to include the drinks on Half Moon Key. It's their island and their stock after all. It would have been a nice touch that doesn't cost them anything extra. On a more upscale line like Holland America, I was a little surprised by this, but maybe that's just my inexperience. We touched on food and drink criticism, so now let's move on to entertainment. We've already discussed the kind of entertainment and what to expect and what you won't find here. But as for criticisms of the entertainment that was provided, I do have one, and maybe it's not entirely fair. I wish the music catered more to my generation. The music was incredible, and the musicians are talented, well-seasoned performers. But the music was kind of more what I'd expect my parents' generation to enjoy. The rock band stuck to the classics with very little deviation into anything as recent as like the late 80s. The music found in the piano bar and the B.B. King Blues Club also mostly skewers toward the tunes of decades past. And in some ways, this makes sense. They're catering to their core audience, who isn't going to cheer and dance to the music that I grew up listening to. But I do wish there had been a little bit more decade variety. Don't forget about us millennials. What I would have given for a couple of nice covers of some 90s alternative rock. This next one is specific to sailing with Holland America on school holidays, and it's almost contradictory to what I said earlier about this line being one that isn't kid-focused and doesn't attract families. However, if you do sail over the holidays, there will be families and there will be kids. And what do kids do on a ship that isn't at all designed to keep them entertained for a week straight? They take over the pool. The Lido pool was basically unusable the second week of our cruise, which was Christmas week. It became a water playground for kids. And there's no lifeguard on duty, so there was a ton of jumping and running and screaming and splashing. And I can't blame them, they're bored. If they're just tired of, or maybe they just don't want to use the kids club anymore, then there's really nothing else for them to do on these ships. So just a word of warning, if you're looking for that classic, calm, relatively kid-free Holland America experience over school holidays, it's not gonna happen. Pick a different week. And this last one is super tiny and minor, but as someone who is approaching middle age and who also works out a lot, when I exercise, I need to take care of my body before and after. A gym on a cruise line who attracts an older demographic needs to be stocked with foam rollers to keep those muscles nice and loose after a hard workout. Again, very minor, but if you're my age or older, then you know the importance of keeping those muscles in good working order after hitting the gym. So there you have it, likes, dislikes, and general observations on Holland America coming from a first-time millennial-age cruiser. So what's the answer here? Is Holland America just for the old people? At this point, you can draw your own conclusions. Some of you are probably saying, yes, this sounds like a floating nursing home, hard pass. And some of you may be thinking, I'm an 80s or 90s baby, and this kind of sounds nice. It really just depends on what your priorities are for your vacation. And that's exactly what this is, your vacation. So if this all sounds like a good fit for who you are and what you like, then go for it. Don't let the line's reputation stop you from experiencing what may be a perfect trip for you. At the end of the day, Holland America is going to please those who like the simple things done well and who prefer relaxing and enriching activities versus the constant partying. If that's you, then go for it. Personally, I have a few mega resort ships that I'm dying to check out, but my partner and I will absolutely be on Holland America again. There were a few things that I wished were different, but nothing is perfect. Overall, we had an incredible time. Thanks for watching, and I do hope you'll subscribe to the channel to join me for all of my future adventures, both at sea, on land, and under the water too. I'm up for everything, and I love sharing my experiences with you all. If you want to take a full tour of the Rotterdam or check out one of my other cruise videos, the links are here. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.